Funny.
Okay, guys, we're back. One of the students was just having some technical difficulties. Okay, so we finished, that was braces and dictionaries. Now we're going to do prefixes and suffixes. And I thought we had already done this. I don't guess we had, huh? And it may have touched on it a little bit. Guys, this is going to be real important, okay? Prefix and suffix is super cool stuff, and I showed some of the students here a little while ago about doing it, okay? So they're going to kind of go into detail about prefixes and suffixes.
Let's see how Total Eclipse handles prefixes and suffixes. Your Steno dictionary probably includes common prefixes to hook onto a following word, and suffixes to hook onto a previous word. Eclipse does a great job of adjusting spellings as it adds prefixes and suffixes, but please remember, it will only adjust the spellings if braces surround both the delete space symbol and the prefix or suffix text.
You see what it's telling you right there? And one of the students, Rolando, was saying that sometimes it wouldn't drop the E when he was putting ED, and it would have two E's. That's why. It's because you didn't define it correctly. So probably what happened is you have the caret on the outside, then you have ED inside of the brackets. And that's probably what happened. But if you define it this way, it already knows, drop the E, like say it was separate, and you want it separated, it's going to drop the E on separate and add the ED. Okay? So you have to remember that it has to be inside the brackets. Okay?
Eclipse will not automatically adjust spelling.
And that's probably what happened right here. Okay? So you may have put the caret inside the brackets and left the ED outside, and that's what it's going to do. Okay? So if it's coming up wrong, then you have it defined wrong in your dictionary, and that's why it's coming up wrong. Okay?
If only the delete space symbol is within braces. Eclipse comes with a prefixes and suffixes kit with a dictionary that includes several hundred entries. All you have to do is decide whether you want to use the steno that is given as an example, or press the enter key to get inside and change the steno to something that you know you would write.
So you see what they're doing? So say you write ing, ing. Really?
Right.
If you do, you need to get whacked with a stick. But if you do, that's what you do. They're just giving you an example.
Yeah.
But if you want to go in and change it, that's how you change it.
But
Okay.
it has to make sure you have the caret and the ing inside of the bracket.
Yes, either way. So I'm going to rewind it just a bit, and it's going to kind of go over it again.
This kit with a dictionary that includes several hundred entries. All you have to do is decide whether you want to use the steno that is given as an example, or press the enter key to get inside and change the steno to something that you know you would write. The documentation shows how these prefixes and suffixes, added to common root words, could help translate uncommon words beautifully. Much more could be said about prefixes and suffixes, but this is the subject of a separate in-depth e-power video tutorial which shows you step by step how to take advantage of the prefixes and suffixes kit.
Pretty basic. They don't want you to get too in-depth. But if you want to go on to where it says visit website, and you have internet connection at your house or wherever, and you want to go on, put your cursor right here, Alt-V, and it'll kind of go into it. You may not understand some of the things that they're trying to tell you, but I mean, if you want to try to go through it, you can. You know, once again, they're telling you, you know, if you tag words that, and put them together, like ending words with another word, if you define it correctly, it'll come up correctly, okay? So say you're gonna say, moving the car, and you put move, TG, and you did it on purpose, or whether you did or not, it doesn't really matter, but you do it all the time. And you know that TG isn't a stroke for you. You know that it's G, ing, it's going to be a suffix with the, then you can define it and put it in your main dictionary, and that's the way that you do it. Bracket, caret, ing, bracket, and then just type the. There doesn't need to be a space right there. Okay? You see how they did it? There doesn't need to be a space. You put a space in there, now it's going to have 2 spaces. Okay? So be careful that you do it the way that they tell you to do it. Because if not, then it's going to come out different and wrong. And once it does, then you're going to know that you messed something up. Then you got to go back and define it. Okay? So you want to go through there. They have a little exercise here towards the end, and you want to define it. How do you define it? Global it?
G.
G. It tells you right there. So what it's supposed to be is preponderance. Okay? So what they're trying to tell you to do is, back in my day, what they used to tell us to do was define the whole word. Well, now they don't want you to do that. Okay? Now what they want you to do is define each word, if it can stand alone. If it can stand alone, then you need to define each word, and then it knows to put it together. Okay, so like here, pre is automatically going to go with pon, so it's automatically going to put it on. Pon can stand alone, so it's already defined. Okay, so you go through, you push G. It's number 1 because it's going to be a prefix. And see how I put it on there? So now you go through, and now you want to do Well, can stand on its own. Okay? So you hit G. It's going to tell you that it's going to be a suffix. It's always going to add on to something else. ER is always going to add on to something else. So it's number 1. And then yance, okay? So it's going to know that it's number 1 because yance, when you do, and there's a certain way of doing things, like when they say overkill, and you'll learn this later. You don't really need to know it right now, but I mean, it probably wouldn't be bad to learn it right now. They used to tell us to do it as joverkill. So anything like that needs to be with a word that's going to be a prefix, like overkill, oversight, any of that stuff, it's going to go on with the next word. So it's going to be considered a prefix. And you write it as jover. Well, when it's a suffix, you write it as, when they say, what's 2 words? Rollover. So now over is going to be a suffix. Well, you can't do it with jover because jover is a prefix. Now they tell you to do it with Y. Yover. And yover, and just like yance, because it's not preponderance, it's preponderance. But they want to make it as a suffix. Does this make any sense, guys? Does this make sense to y'all? Mm-hmm. The jover and yover, yance and jance. I mean, it wouldn't really be jance because I don't know that ants would come at the beginning of a word. I don't know that it would be a prefix. But it's going to be a suffix. So they write it as yance. So you put number 1, and now it does it and automatically puts it in there. I don't know why this one didn't come out. It needs to be 4. So now it puts it together. So now it's one word, but it's pre, pond, Yes. So it's 4 strokes. Okay? So if you write it as 4 strokes, then that's how you do it for one word. And you keep it separate. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You even know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Okay? So you want to come here and you want to define this. What's it going to be? Number 1.
Number 1.
Because it's a prefix hooked onto a word. Okay? Hit number 1, boom, puts it in there. So if you have a habit of putting that G on with the next word, then that's how you do it. Same thing here. Posturing that. And posturing that will not make their duties any easier. And it's posturing that. So it's going to be number 1 again, boom, and it puts it on there. Okay? Any questions about that?
No.
Occasionally, you'll need to add a prefix or suffix while editing. You can click on a toolbar icon, or open the Edit menu to insert a prefix or suffix, or press Hyperkey W.
You see what it's telling you? Just what I was telling you. In hyperkeys, it's W. Got it? So you don't need to use all of these toolbar things, whatever, really unnecessary, okay? But if you're a toolbar person, help yourself. You're just making it a little bit harder for yourself, but whatever.
This dialog, G is a shortcut. And this time I'll use the shortcut D. And of course, these suffixes were added with the proper spelling adjustments. Much more could be said about prefixes and suffixes, but this is the subject of a separate in-depth ePower video tutorial, which shows you step by step how to take advantage of the prefixes and suffixes kit.
Got it?
Got it.
Let's see some of the ways that AutoMagic helps you prevent spelling errors as you work. Word reversals are just one of the small problems that AutoMagic understands. This question should have been, is she still working there? Pressing 5 is a fast way to reverse these words.
So you can always look here to AutoMagic, and it's going to give you different options of what you need to do, okay? And the good and bad thing, the good and good thing about it is, one, it's going to give you the option of what you want to do. Like say it's a word reversal. It was, she is, still works there. Well, it's supposed to be, is she? So you come over here, the word reversal is number 5, so you can push number 5, or over here it's going to tell you the shortcut. And the shortcut is Shift R. So are you in a job? Everybody's in a job?
Yes.
Get on a word at the beginning of a word and do Shift R. Did it do it?
No, I think mine is Control R.
Control R?
Mm-hmm.
Should be Shift R.
Yeah. Mine say Control R.
Reverses the word?
Mm-hmm.
Control?
That's it, right?
Yeah. Should be Shift, but whatever. So it did it? Shift R? Weird. Oh, it puts an R in there?
That's what Shift R does to me. He probably has to do Control R too.
Yeah,
But see, I'm on Eclipse version 7.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's
It
it.
did. See, you had it as this trial. Do it again. See?
Oh, okay.
Now it's reversing
That's
the
what
word.
it did.
You got it? Because you're Shift.
It is Shift
or
R.
Control.
Shift R.
Yeah, Shift R. So if you do it again, it'll reverse it back. So all it's going to do is toggle them. It's going to reverse it back or whatever. So if you put it on the word, do Shift R, it's going to reverse the words. And if you do it again, it'll put it back to where what it used to be.
This should have been working, but I need a different suffix. Pressing 2 here would be a fast way to pick suffix ing. Here's another suffix problem. This should have been on the form. Yes. Pressing 3 makes that correction. And now Automagic sees that I may need a comma in front of yes. Pressing a comma would quickly insert the comma in the proper spot.
So how do you get
Compound
to the screen to use the function keys for Automagic?
What's that?
I said, because I don't see all of that stuff.
All of what?
For the paragraphs and changing the words, all I see is the reverse words.
Fast way to pick suffix ing. Here's another suffix problem. This should have been.
Just do what?
I don't see all that stuff. All I see is, of course, I see the insert.
Insert a new paragraph. You can delete a word.
Right.
Go to
And
play.
then I don't see
What do you
change
want?
a word or insert suffix. I don't see that.
Well, it may not. It's not always going to have the same type of things. Now, if you move
Okay.
it, it'll change. See how this one has play, settings. Move it again. It's going to have different options. So it may not have all the same options every time.
Okay.
Okay, so as you type in different words, this is going to change. This stuff in Automagic is going to change on when it comes to different words, because if it's a word at the beginning of a sentence, then it's going to ask you, you know what, do you want a question here, answer here, you know, whatever. Well, it's not going to ask you, do you want a question and answer in the middle of the sentence.
Right.
Okay, so it's always going to change these things. So it's always going to be a little bit different.
And Automagic is only available in a completed job for you when you get ready to go and edit. It's not
No.
there while you're.
It should be.
Okay.
But, I mean, really what it's going to do is if you're doing real time, it's not so much going to give you options anymore. So what you need to do, so say you're going and going, and they say, you know what, Dave, go off the record, off. Well, you know what, I came up here, this was supposed to be is she. I put my cursor up here, now this thing comes on, and now it gives me different options. It may not give you the options while you're writing,
Okay.
because you're writing and it's changing so much that it may not give you that option then. Okay? So that's really what it's telling you there.
On the form, yes. Pressing 3 makes that correction. And now Automagic sees that I may need a comma in front of yes. Pressing a comma would quickly insert the comma in the proper spot. Compound words are another problem. Sometimes it may be that 2 words need to be joined as one, or that 1 word needs to be split into 2. Pressing choice 1 here corrects this unintended compound.
You see what it did right there? So it's going to give you the option sometimes if it's 2 words that are put together. Like say it's overkill and say it needs to be 2 words. Then it'll give you that option. You know what? It just needs to be over and then killed as 2 different words.
This should have been she was outstanding in the field. A typing error occurred, and the faint underlining in red is calling that to your attention as you type. The correction is also being offered on the Automagic list.
And see what they did right there is they typed field as a long E, and it should have been, you know, like F-I-L-D, field, you know. So it gives you that option right here. Did you mean to do fee-led? Probably not, but I mean, it starts giving you different options. You know, was it field, feel, or was it field? And then you just pick the right one and it puts it in there.
Press 9. Automagic also integrates type over tracking. My steno for technological and my steno for tool are very close to one another, so I tend to replace one of these words with the other. Eclipse tracks that type over, and Automagic offers it as a choice.
You see what it's doing? So if you've defined it once as tool and then you define it again as technological, then it's going to know, you know what, you've done it once, so now I'm going to put it up here as an option. So the more you use the software, the more it knows what you're doing, and it becomes more accustomed to what you're trying to do. So don't always use it as a database and a data entry little thing. Excuse me, where you're always pushing in and typing stuff in. Don't do that. I mean, you can, and there are times that you need to just insert stuff, and that's okay. But you always want to try to use the software. And the more that you use it, the more that it remembers what you're trying to do. Okay?
If I press 7, that makes the correction. And here again, Automagic is watching for punctuation that might need to be inserted. One last correction here. Let's assume that this is not misspelled, but the reporter didn't have an alphabet that included hyphens. Pressing 3 would stitch with hyphens. Pressing 4.
You see how you do that? And sometimes when it comes to proper names like that, or when they say, well, what's your name? My name is David. Well, how do you spell that? D-A, so you're doing D period, A period, V period, I period, D period. Well, what it's going to do sometimes is it's just going to put it in caps. Okay? Unless you tell it like say you have a stroke for a stitch, okay? And you do D period, and you do ST, STH, you have that much time to do it, help yourself. And you know what it's doing. Don't worry about it, okay? All you need to do is spell it out. Automagic is gonna help you, okay? So now that you've done L-A, L period, A period, F period, A period, blah, 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 it's gonna come up all in caps. We'll say, spell that town's name again. Well, when you're spelling, it needs to be stitched because you're spelling each letter, okay? I mean spelling, you're writing each letter, and that's what you're doing. So what you want to do is stitch it, okay? Well, this isn't spelled correctly. Well, maybe the town that he's from really is spelled Lafayette with a T. It's not your job to clean him up. Maybe he doesn't know how to spell where he's from. That's not your job to clean him up. So say he spelled it that way, then you spell it that way. You do it, you write it the way he says it, okay? And if he spelled it wrong, but they're always going to give you the option of, that's not the way it's spelled. It's usually spelled like this. Do you want it like this? And if you do, then you push number 4, puts it in there. Now this whole thing's going to change again. And now they're going to give you the option to stitch it with the correct spelling of the TTE. You see what I'm saying? It's pretty neat. It really is. So the more you use it, the more it's going to know what you're doing.
Would actually correct the spelling. If I just go back, pressing 3 would now stitch this spelling.
You see what it just told you? So you pressed it once to put that. Now it gives you the option here. Now number 3, now I want it stitched. And that's the correct spelling. And say you missed it. You know, say he spelled it like that, but you were typing so fast and he said, you know, well, it's L-A-F-A-Y-E-T-T-E. And you're like, ooh, and left off a T. No big deal. Whatever, you know? I mean, you know, if they're watching the screen, they're gonna know. They're gonna know, you know? Maybe you missed one, no big deal. They're gonna know what you were trying to do. No big deal there. It's gonna give you that option. You pick that option on the correct spelling, change it. And even if it's not, and say it doesn't know that Lafayette is spelled with 2 T's. He spelled it with 2 T's. Maybe it only has 1 T, but he spelled it with 2 T's. You write it the way that he said it, okay? And then you go back and stitch it yourself. It's going to give you that option, okay?
Just some of the ways that Automagic takes advantage of the spelling checker and type over tracking features built into Eclipse.
Okay, do y'all have any questions about that? Prefixes and suffixes. It kind of came to the end. There's a little exercise if you want to do it. So any questions about that?
No.
No? You know what, guys? I think we're going to end right there because we're going to get into speakers, and speakers is pretty important stuff too. So, and I think we're gonna spend a little more time with that, all right? So do y'all have any questions about what we're doing, what we did today? Kind of covered a lot of stuff today. Again, prefix and suffix is huge, okay? Use that stuff. Mess around with that stuff. And even if you have to go through and mess with those lessons again, do it, okay?
I don't know why I've never noticed that.
Yeah,
Auto
it's
magic
good.
over there.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, yeah. And that auto magic is super cool. So when you're editing, look at that stuff. Look at that, because it'll cut down time a lot. A lot. Okay? So any questions about the stuff we covered tonight? No? Okay. We'll see y'all next 2 weeks.